Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Kenneth Price, and this is Sunday, looks like November 13th. And this is our Sunday morning Zoom call for the ministry I'm hosting, psychiatricsobriety.com. I've been doing this for over a year now. We do 2 Zoom calls every week. We do one at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sundays. We do one at 5 p.m., 9 a.m. Pacific time on Mondays, one 5 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays. And what do we do here? That's kind of a complicated question to answer. Let me share with you who I am first. I'm 55 years old, and I was told by not just doctors, but I was told by many people who had an investment in the chemical imbalance theory that I had a mental illness and I would be requiring pharmaceuticals for the rest of my life. It was a belief that I had. It was just a belief. It was a belief that I had, and that was given to me by doctors and by some very well-meaning people who also had that belief. And so many years ago, I heard an inner voice saying to challenge that belief, and in so doing, I went on a vision quest. I've been a seeker my whole life, but the vision quest really accelerated 6 to 7 years ago when I had to find out what was true for me. And in doing that, I surrendered those medications. I surrendered all of them, and they included benzodiazepines. There's a long story that I have that I don't like to go into. It's all on my YouTube channel. But anyway, I made some profound discoveries, and I'm still making profound discoveries. And out of all that came this ministry. I've been doing outreach for many years, but I actually formalized this last year. It's not any sort of a formal ministry. I'm not even a minister, but I did put together a website, and I've been doing Zoom calls, or we've been doing Zoom calls for over a year. We've got over 80 Zoom calls recorded for YouTube, and it's working. I'm healing the more I share my healing with others. It's a win-win situation. So that's who I am. What do we do here? Well, we get together, we support each other. We get together and we rethink all these old beliefs that have been disempowering. And a lot of us in doing that realize that pharmaceuticals are not the answer for us. Now, this is a very delicate thing that I'm doing by discussing pharmaceuticals. So I always have to include disclaimers. Please understand and hear me out. This ministry is not here to help people get off psych meds. This ministry is not to tell people to get off psych meds. And this ministry is not to tell people, what's wrong with psychiatry. I say it at every introduction, every Zoom call, because if we start looking at the problems of what's wrong with psychiatry, we are mentally ill, and they're right. So we gotta win this by finding the peaceful approach, and that's why it's a ministry. It's a peaceful approach. It's anchored through grace. It's anchored through miracles. I emerged through grace, and I emerged through miracles. I cannot state that more clearly and more poignantly. I had to work hard to procure miracles. And that's why this ministry is called Peer Support, because we come here and we do the work together. We support each other who are doing the work. So it's, yeah, that's basically my introduction. So please hear me out. If you're really having a rough ride, we can support you. But the best way we can support you is to love you and to give you the faith and the courage to keep going. One of the misunderstandings is a lot of people come in here and say, I'm having this symptom, I'm having this symptom, I'm having this symptom. And we have all the compassion and understanding, because many of us had those symptoms. The way we got through ours was with courage and with faith. And that's my contribution to this community is the contribution of courage and faith. And also just to look at me and say, I'm happy. I'm happy most of the time. And even when I'm not happy, I can be in pain and not be in suffering. So anyway, I've kind of given you my brief introduction. All right. It's unstructured, but it is being recorded for YouTube. So what we do is we keep the record button going for an hour. And after we end the record button, at 60 minutes, I'll keep the Zoom room open. So if there's something too delicate that you don't want to share, and it broadcasts all over the internet, wait till after the hour. However, however, I highly encourage you to share as much as you can and be as transparent as you can. And I'll tell you why. Because when I stopped being ashamed of my mental illness, when I stopped being ashamed of my story, when I started exposing everything that I thought would damage my reputation, just the opposite happened. The reputation became a complete illusion, and that's when I began to emerge. I belong to a spiritual community, and the name of my teacher is David Hoffmeister, and he has, one of his rules is no private thoughts. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, if that's how a person has a spiritual awakening, what have I got to lose? I've got this technology right in front of me, Zoom and YouTube. Why don't I just broadcast my story to the whole world and see what happens? I'll do an experiment, and I'll be goddamned if I didn't pop out of mental illness. One more thing. What's mental illness? Private thoughts. There. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Okay. So let's see. The way I start this call every Zoom every time is by saying the healer's prayer. This comes from the Course in Miracles. You need to know I'm a Course in Miracles student. So a lot of language I use is going to be non-dual metaphysics. But you don't have to be a Course in Miracles student to come in here. You just have to be open-minded and willing. That's basically all God requires. God doesn't care if you're Buddhist, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're Course in Miracles. God doesn't care. God doesn't even care if you're an atheist, just as long as you're open-minded and willingness and you have the courage. Okay, so the healer's prayer goes like this. We are here only to be truly helpful, and we are here to represent him or her who sent us. We do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he or she who sent us will direct us. We are content to be wherever he or she wishes, knowing that he or she goes there with us. And I'm going to tinker with the last line. I'm going to play with the wording. I have been healed because I let him show me how to teach healing. What it says is we will be healed as we let him teach us how to heal. But that's the word that keeps going around. How did you heal? When did you heal? How did you heal? When did you heal? Well, it's here in the last line of the healer's prayer. So that's how I did it. All right. Watson, Gemma, Jill, and Ashley. How's everyone been doing? How's your week going? Love y'all. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for supporting me. I got a smile from Gemma. She's always got something to say. She's got a big heart in the left square, and she's smiling. How about Jill? Jill, I haven't heard from you in a while. How you been? You feel like sharing this morning? Well, it's I'm on East Coast time. It's not morning here, but maybe it's where you are.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Jill. It's good to see you again.
Hi. I'm sorry. I'm keeping my my video off for right now because I smoke cigarettes and I don't want to bother anybody. I don't like to be on camera with a group of people much with my habit.
Listen, I'm still chewing the Nicorette gum, so you're not going to hear any judgment from me.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a struggle. I'm tapering off of the drugs now, so that's my focus.
I got to share with you, Jill. One of the things that helped me a tremendous amount here, at the Living Miracles community is there is a community member here who's one of the founders, and she smokes, and it was so helpful. Yeah, I used to judge myself for and maybe I mean obviously if I'm chewing the Nicorette gum, I'm still addicted to nicotine, but to go outside and share a cigarette with a spiritual teacher was one of the most helpful things that she could have done for me. Because I wasn't ready to quit. I couldn't quit. I still had so much, my pain body, still needed some sort of soothing. So yeah, it's all right. It's all okay.
Thank you.
How you been? Is there anything you want to share? We got 6 participants, so I'll just keep going around so people come up with topics or whatever's happening today.
I've been doing pretty good. My grandmother of 91 just passed away and left behind 100 grandchildren. Yeah, it was quite the funeral, but I got off my court order. I was court ordered for a year to take drugs, and my court order ended in November on the 3rd of this month. So that's a celebration for me.
Yeah. And so I follow you on Facebook, sporadically. So without the court order, am I hearing you right? It's going to be your intention to start tapering some of the meds.
Right. I am tapering the Depakote daily, a pill, and I have to get off the injection and onto pills in order to taper that safely. But I was going to ask if there's any suggestions on information and research for tapering, where I should look to go. I know the innercompass.org is very familiar with all that. I wondered if anybody had more suggestions on where to research, because I'm going to probably be dictating to my psychiatrist what I would like.
What I would suggest, Jill, is go into the chat feature. Generally, the calls for the hour that I host these emphasize on the spiritual, tools. But what I would invite you to do is to go into the chat feature and talk to the people while we're having this call, and see if you can ask some of those questions, using the peripheral chat feature that we've got available. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see who else is on board. Who else wants? We got. I know, Gemma. I'm going to put you on hold because I want to get to a few others. But I see you. I can't wait to get you on board. But Mary, how have you been? It's been a while. Not a while, but it's
not too long. I'm trying to join in more. Everything is going great. Doing some shadow work, going through some. I think actually going to some places, reaching some issues and stuff that I have actually never maybe dared try to address before with myself. So yeah, I'm actually, and there's some depression and some stuff that's coming up, but I'm learning to sit with that and not repress it and push it down. When I feel like being sad, I'll let myself be sad and I don't judge myself for it. And I come out of it a lot faster.
I'm glad you brought that up because part of hosting this ministry is I have to be completely transparent. So maybe this is a good time for me to share with everyone what my week looked like. I'm here in Cincinnati and I'm remodeling a property for the ministry that I belong to. And let's see, I went into fear one morning. I pushed myself. I have a habit of working. It's manual labor. It's remodeling, so I can really push myself. It's just part of my archetype. And I woke up the next morning, and I honestly I don't know where the fear was coming from. And I know trying to figure out where the fear was coming from is going to put me in the past, where I'm swimming around in my childhood, and that's dangerous territory. Nonetheless, I was tired, and I started going squirrely up here. I started going, well, I guess that's the best way I can describe this. I started going completely squirrely. Now, here's what's important to share with this ministry, because what my thoughts were is I started, I had broken into an old knob and tube circuit, and I had cut the wires too close to the conduit. And then all of a sudden, because I was out of balance, because I was in fear, it exploded into my head as I'm going to have to rewire the entire circuit. Basically, in a nutshell, I'm describing catastrophizing. That's what my mental illness, looks like. It's called catastrophizing. And that's why they put me on all those pills, Yeah, Watson's doing that too. Okay, but here's what's different this time. I'm here in Cincinnati with one of the ministry messengers who's helping me, support me while I remodel this bathroom. I wasn't ashamed of what was going on up here. I wasn't trying to hide it, wasn't trying to suppress it. And this time I asked for help. Normally I call somebody, but this time someone was actually living here who had the enough light to hold the space for me. Now this is fearful for me because in the past, if I I'm frightened to ask for help because, oh my God, somebody might, what did you do wrong to, that's what my mental illness looks like. Is I'm a frightened little boy. Oh, I'm sorry. But this time I trusted somebody. And she's just sat with me. I knew what to ask for. And this is important to document. I knew what to ask. I've learned how to ask for help. And I just said it very specific. I didn't go into all my stories. Maybe that's why I couldn't ask for help before, because I would say, help. I was abused as a child. I was molested. I was raped. no one could help me. No one could help me when I still had that narrative going. But this time I just kept it very simple. I said, I'm going into fear. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm tired. Can you hold some space?
Right.
That she could do. And after, a few minutes, she asked me, she goes, what do you need from me? And I said, can you take a walk with me? We went there's a cemetery just down the street. We went down to the cemetery and we sat together on a bench. And I was able to get still long enough in the fear. And then under that, I discovered the sadness. Yeah. And then the tears began to flow. And I let the tears flow this time. I didn't, boys shouldn't cry. No, I was past that narrative. I've been past that narrative for, a while now. And as the tears flowed, I learned how to trust the tears. And you're right, Mary, I pulled through mine faster, much, much faster, because I exposed, I expressed, and I trusted. This is all brand new for me. When I do that, I don't need those pills anymore. Tears are not mental illness. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. That's what mine looks like.
Yeah, that's great. Very inspiring.
For a lot of people, tears come natural. And I've been so jealous, asking, where are mine? Because I know I've got grief work to do. But when all this stuff was when the trauma was going down, I numbed out. I did it to myself. I numbed myself out. And then I went mentally ill, hence, psych meds and benzodiazepines and addictions. So the reason I've labeled this ministry, psychiatric sobriety, is this is what my work looks like. And, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the work of 7 other people. Thank you all for showing up. Who wants to go? Did I prime the pump? Anybody want to touch on that? We got a new member, Pasquale. I'd love to meet you, Pasquale. Would you like to unmute yourself? If not, that's all right. Well, maybe it's Gemma's turn, because I know she's going to jump on that. But you gotta, come on, unmute yourself. Do I have to unmute you? No, or Watson. Watson's got his hand raised. There, you're unmuted.
I'll go. It's great being back. I'm inadvertently took a couple of weeks off for, I guess, technical issues, but that's okay. Just wanted to share this. A few weeks ago, I think I mentioned that through all of this, I call it my transformation or emergence perhaps. I mentioned that I thought I was taking a Pollyanna approach to a lot of it and just forcing myself to be happy and bright and cheerful and whatnot. And that took a lot more energy than just allowing myself to be. And yesterday I had a great example of, say, wrong-minded thinking and right-minded thinking. Went to the grocery store around lunchtime, checked out behind this lady who had a huge sheet cake that was about to fall off the top of her cart, and I was helping her and speaking with her, and it was a great interaction, and she was very appreciative of my help in line. And then I followed her out and I said, would you like some help getting that into your car? And she goes, I would love some, thank you. So I went to my truck and put my groceries up and went and helped her out. She was very grateful, and I was just walking on air after that, because just delighted that I was able to interact with another spirit. And she was very enlightening for the day for me. And contrast that to about an hour later, I went to my sister's house, parked my truck on the street. She lives kind of near a busy street, but for some reason I was not going to stay there that long, and I just I didn't lock the truck, but I was at the kitchen washing my hands, and I was looking out the front yard, and I saw my truck, and then I saw this car drive up very slowly next to a very small car, and it was hidden by the truck. And I'm thinking, okay, something's not right here. So somebody got out of the truck, somebody got out of the car and was in my truck. And so I bolted, and I just instinctively, ego-minded, bolted, the 75 feet out to the street, yelling, "What the hell are you doing in my truck?" And the guy just, he got scared, and he just got in the car and he took off, and I was huffing and puffing, adrenaline going 1,000 miles an hour. And then after a few minutes, I thought, well, that was totally ego. That was absolutely and completely all ego that did that. And I'm thinking, why not just assume that that person was indigent, hungry, looking for money to buy some food or to buy a hotel room for the night? And all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow, this stuff is working. It is actually working. And I spent the rest of the day forgiving him first off, and then forgiving myself for getting so angry, and thinking, well, that's the old me. That's the way that ego used to treat me, and I reverted. And so it took me about 30 minutes to an hour to really calm down. And my sister and my brother-in-law were sitting in there in the den with me. They were thinking, I don't know why you don't call the police. I don't know why you're not so angry. I don't know why you're so calm about this. And I'm thinking, it's Kenneth and the group. It's A Course in Miracles. It's, I'm emerging from shit that I'm not proud of in the past. And I was not proud of myself for jumping like that yesterday. But then I was just trying to be in the moment, and it works, and it's working, I should say. It's getting there, and I'm grateful for all the support from you, Kenneth, and everyone else here. And it's taken my mind off of symptoms or guilt, and it's working. It's working. Baby steps again. Back to baby steps.
Mine's always the guilt, and this is part of the reason I'm hosting this ministry. Is I'm 55. I got to start being happy, and I know there's still guilt down here, and so I'm just do everything I can. Start a ministry, share it, get this miracle on the road. I'm tired of the guilt. Most of us were raised with some, it was a style of parenting. What's the parent? I don't know who was the author. It was Dr. Spock. Make sure and guilt your children to get them to do what you want them to. No disrespect, mom and dad, but I'm done with that. Is Gemma? How are you doing, Gemma? Your turn now. Let's see you. There you go.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, look, always good to see you.
And you, yeah. I am happy to join today. And yeah, I'm doing good. I had a little moment this morning where I was feeling a lot of things, and I reached out. I've actually created a little WhatsApp group for creatives and healers. And so I decided to share how I was, instead of trying to pretend that I was okay. I just said, I'm actually struggling a bit this morning. And then one of the ladies who's also in a book that I'm going to be in a book called Words of the Wise. And anyway, she reached out to me, and I said, is it all right if we have our chat in, privately, so that I can work through it? So I'm not working through it, while I'm hosting the group, if that makes sense. So I said, I'll come back and talk about my insights and things. But anyways, so she had a talk with me, and it was really interesting because it was like a miracle, because she actually works with entrepreneurs on how to earn money. But I didn't know this, but that's like her business. And then that's the thing that I'm finding most difficult, is like promoting my work and asking people to come to things. Do you know what I was thinking? I need to donate to your, to thank you for doing these, because actually we need to always do, in A Course in Miracles, it says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Just came out of my mouth, but that wasn't the one I was going to share. It's about, you can only not have what you don't give. So I want to start being the change that I want to see in the world and supporting the people that I love. And and I was so grateful for the call, because she said to me, what's the fear? She really got me to sit with the feelings. She said, what is it that you're feeling? And, is it rejection, abandonment, fear? And I said, yeah, all of those things. And I just said, I don't feel seen.
Still chaos. Getting this, and I prayed over this. I mean, it's taken all the resources I've got to pray for my roommate upstairs rather than to do something I will regret. And again, I finally got to it. It's sadness. He's crying for love. Crying for love. That's a hard one. But sometimes we got to sit and bake in the chaos and it's hard when we're young. The other thing about being self-supportive, I had to wait until my 40s and 50s before even my career began to even get off the ground. Patience. We're all taught we need money. We're taught. Well, that's why I just hang with David Hoffmeister, because he's the only teacher I've found that can get a belly laugh when it comes to careers and college degrees. He just gets a belly. I need to hear that, because my parents took careers and college degrees as if it was God. My parents weren't, my father wasn't Christian. My father was a capitalist, born again capitalist. People who don't make money go to hell. Seriously. And that is not showing him disrespect, because those were his exact, pretty much his exact words. Who's next? Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good morning, or at least good morning. I'm on the West Coast. Yeah, good to be here. Good to see everybody. Man, Jim, I just totally relate to what you're saying, especially when, you're not feeling well or getting kind of stirred up by different overwhelming, emotions and maybe external circumstances. And it made me think, I'm coming off of Paxil paroxetine, and there were times, and I still get sometimes these like rage attacks, just like absolute intense anger. And, at first it was really scary. And now, it's a little less scary, because I guess I've reframed it. I just feel like, okay, these are just other emotions coming up as I remove this barrier, Paxil, that's been in my life for decades. But it's scary because it's such an intense emotion. It also, kind of to your point, Gemma, it signifies to me that I'm at a place that's not really great, or I'm being overwhelmed, and then that brings up a whole bunch of other feelings, guilt about not being kind of in an emotional state that I want to be in, or guilt over losing control, or the shame that comes with an outburst or something. But something that just popped in my head, it made me emotional when you were talking, was this past weekend, I fixed my gate. I have a gate on the side of my house, and it's been broken for months because I broke it. I was so pissed one day. The gate kind of gets caught on one of the pavers underneath it, and one day it got caught on that paver, and I just pulled it shut, slammed it shut, and I opened it, slammed it shut, and I did that about 5 times until it just ripped off the 2x4, and and then I was kind of left with that feeling of that you're left with after something like that. It's not satisfying. It's just it just sucks. And but here I am months later, and I fixed the gate. Went out there, and as opposed to breaking it, I calmly set it up, screwed in what needed to be screwed in, and realigned it, bent back the hardware mechanism that had been all bent and broken. And it kind of made me realize, it was like, oh man, like what are the broken gates in my life that I can go back to and repair? And whether it's something physical like that, or a relationship, or anything, and it I think it makes me emotional, because it gives me a little compassion for myself, and it makes me realize, like, oh yeah, these are just experiences we're going through. And I think the more, like you, Gemma, it's like the more we share, the more we go through them, the more we accept and just kind of let go and realize that's part of the process. It's like, that is the process. Like, that is the healing process, instead of the guilt that comes along with it, and these roadblocks, and like the woulda, shoulda, couldas. It also made me realize, like, Watson, when you were sharing, I had this like metaphor pop into my head of like a pinball player, playing pinball at the arcade. And we are often like the little pinball. We're just like bouncing around and getting caught in between things, getting launched over here and launched over there, and then slowly rolling here. And that pinball is just like not really sure what's going on. But whenever you're the pinball player and you can see the pinball bouncing, you better see the cause and effect, right? If the pinball's flying over there, it's because you saw it got hit really hard right there. And as the pinball player, you're not like worried about the pinball and freaking out about why the pinball is bouncing all over. And Watson, that's what popped in my head when you said, basically you were sharing your awareness of yourself, right? You saw, oh, right, because I had this really nice interaction at the supermarket. It put me in such a great place, and then I had this kind of upsetting experience at my house with my truck, and that put me in this space. And I just think that's great to be able to notice that. And because at the end of the day, like, these cause and effect experiences, like, that is life. That is just the experience of being human to a certain degree, or to a great degree, but not being wrapped up in it constantly, or being able to recognize, like, when we're getting wrapped up into it. Man, that just feels like that's the direction I want to go in. So anyway, those are just some thoughts that popped up for me recently.
Chris, that's beautiful, because as you were sharing with me that story, I recalled when I was living with George. It's 2012. It was probably about 11 years ago. I was still on I was off the benzodiazepine, but I was still on some of the other medications. I might have been on Adderall, I was still on Adderall. There was one night when I woke up and I couldn't, my head was spinning so fast. They couldn't give me enough pills to stop my head, and the pills were probably speeding my head up. And I just went out. I just laid this beautiful new hardwood floor, oak hardwood new floor. I had delicately for 2 weeks pounded every single nail and cut and put. And then I started grabbing, trashing my house, grabbing plates and just smashing them on the floor out of rage, just because I couldn't stop my head from spinning. When I saw that I had damaged my beautiful hardwood floor, my little boy was in tears, not to see what I had done to my partner in the other bedroom. God bless him that he put up with, the illness that I was carrying. But you're right, buddy, that's not us. That is an illness speaking. That's one of the things I like about the 12 steps is in the beginning, they take the addiction, they put it into the category of an illness. And if it's an illness, then it's not about us. An illness is not personal. And so that's why I labeled this psychiatric sobriety is if we can depersonalize it. You're right, that's not us. Broken gates and damaged hardwood floors. when the human experience is, you know, and then when we got trauma, I think part of the reason of a support group is for us to hold, you know, to love one another so that we can forgive ourselves for being human, basically. You know, I mean, if you go deep enough in the Course of Miracles, you know, no one's been harmed, you know, no one's been helped, and nothing's been harmed, and nothing's been helped. But I mean, none of us are enlightened yet. So we'll start off there. Who wants to go on that? Because there was a lot of good stuff there. Rage. Anybody want to talk about rage?
I went through, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I went through a lifetime of pushing down anger because my mother was the type to blow. When she would blow, it was so no one ever saw it coming, and she would damage things. And sadly, because she was always like that, we all just, it was normalized in our family, but it was only normalized for mom to do it. Nobody else could do stuff like that. And grew up, and as we were teenagers, we kind of saw her as, and we loved her, but we would get together, my brothers and me, and just be like, wow, what just happened there? And it almost felt good to have somebody to talk to who was wigging out as well, because I realized many years later, after a lot of therapy, that my mom has the borderline personality disorder. And although I do think her rages were real, she was also very much in control of them. Like if someone knocked at the door, she was sweet as pie. And truth is, when you're really in a rage, you can't just hit a switch. So it was part of how she controlled the family and controlled my dad. And but I grew up feeling like, you know, whatever mom does in terms of that, like I need to be the opposite. And so I was frequently too patient with things, or if I was angry, I wouldn't verbalize it to people. I wasn't sure I trusted myself to not go too far. So I just didn't address it. I would hold it inside, or I might say little terse things, almost like Kenneth and I've laughed about this, almost like English style, you know, passive aggressive, feeling a little ticked or a lot ticked, but not quite feeling like I could express it in a way that felt really appropriate and authentic. I just didn't want to be like mom. But there were times where it would build up, and then maybe it was a lot of things over a lot of time, but the thing that would trigger me might be something dumb. Like a cup kind of comes tipping out of the cupboard because it's messy in there. And now I'm breaking mugs, you know, now it's like, oh, you want to effing drop? Let's break some more. And it would just like, it would open up for a little window of time. I would break things or yell or hit things against the wall, whatever. And I always felt good when nobody was around to have to deal with that. But I think there was some shame. There was shame in like certain emotions are okay to show in front of people, and certain ones are not even okay to have. And so I had to come like full circle. And I like to share this just because it's a different point of view. I started taking Valium as a muscle relaxer because I was allergic to all the other ones, and they gave me hives. And so I was prescribed it as a muscle relaxer because I had severe spinal injuries from a car accident. That meant all my muscles in my back were always like tight as rocks, and it was really painful. And I was trying to learn to live with these new, very painful injuries. And when someone suggested Valium as a muscle relaxer, which by the way is a great muscle relaxer, but there was a point where Valium started acting paradoxically with me, and I was highly anxious and on the edge of being angry a large part of the time. And these rages turned into like state-of-the-art rages where lots of things were broken. And later I would just be so guilty and so dismayed at what I had done, like a little tornado through my house. And there are still things today where I'll be like, I wonder where those candlesticks went. And all around, well, they probably went the way of a lot of other things. But getting in touch on the other side of all this stuff, you know, Valium's more than 5 years in the past. Actually, I think my 5-year anniversary of stopping Valium is December 12th, actually, coming up. But it's been a long time. I'm way over the side effects of withdrawal. That's in the far rearview mirror. But it taught me that there was a lot of rage in there. It wasn't just created by Valium. Valium just had me expressing it and rebuilding my life without feeling that anger is so terrible that it would ever build to the point of being rage. It's okay to be angry when something angers you, but to deal with it at the time so it doesn't fester and become this great big thing, or realizing you have people that have been in your life for years who are very bad for you and make you feel terrible about yourself, but you weren't honest with yourself enough to just deal with the situation, and all the damage that stuff can do. I mean, I think, our feelings are there for a reason. They tell us things that we need to know, and burying them does not make you a good person. Showing them sometimes does not make you a bad person. And it's the whole experience has had me being much more authentic about what are my feelings, how do certain people make me feel, and rather than guilting myself into silence, I go with it and I explore it, and I have the strength now to leave a relationship if it doesn't feel healthy, without having to traumatize the person either, because they frequently don't know what they're doing, and even if they do, it's not my problem. So I feel like, all these the topic today of rage has come up a few times, and I feel like I was strongly immersed in rage for about 3 years, and came out of it no longer afraid of anger. Anger has a purpose for us, and if you break some teacups, that's actually okay. I don't know where I'm going with all that. I just want to let you know, you all hit on things that I have been through too, and I'm still working on, but I'm learning to be comfortable with many of the really emotions that were previously labeled as bad or wrong or undesirable. We were all given all these motions to use like a set of paints, and you don't leave certain colors out.
Yeah,
That's beautiful, Mary, because one of the things that keeps coming up in this call is when we're off the meds, the backlog in my story, comes, it came out, and that's why I think we need to have these support groups. So as we surrender these pharmaceuticals, to have a container for all this junk. It's not junk. It's far from it, but we're still in the belief that it's junk, it's bad, it's wrong. As it comes up, if we can meet it with respect, with dignity, with appreciation, with a thank you, it wants us. The more we push it down, the more it's going to push us back, and then no wonder we got caught in these pills, because we live in a crazy society. But if we can learn that, see it as the fertilizer that it is, we're gonna just emerge through all of this that had us so stuck had me so stuck for so long. I know, and that's kind of like, that was like Joan Crawford, Mary. You're probably a little bit younger than me, but I swear to God, my father was sort of like mommy dearest. He was charming, but my father had a charming side. But you close the doors and he turns into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like Joan Crawford poor Christina was trying to say, hey, Joan's hitting me. Joan's trying to kill me. And Joan Crawford's the most wonderful woman. No, she's not. She was not so. But when we rely on these personas, these masks, Joan Crawford just wore, the poor woman was an actress who was all, cameras and makeup. But it's because there's so much fear of what's underneath that. She obviously didn't have support groups to go to. She couldn't. My father didn't have support groups to go to. I don't cut him as much slack as I do Joan Crawford. But when this stuff comes up, and the hardest part, and I think Chris brought it up too, the faster I can forgive myself for behaving in ways that I believed harmed others. One of the things I learned in the Course of Miracles is that I haven't harmed anyone. Well, that's not a meal ticket to go out, and that's not a free ticket to go out there and behave irresponsibly. But it shows me a higher truth that ameliorates the guilt, so the behavior doesn't have to continue. We've got 10 minutes left. Who wants to jump on that? I think we've now gone to rage, which is we could do all these calls on rage. How are you doing with rage, Greg? just going to sit there and listen. You're unmuted if you want to. We've got about 10 minutes left, 9 minutes.
I woke up late, so my brain's not prepared. So,
Oh, speaking of brain, you should have heard David, my teacher was on a, he just talks and talks and talks every week. And I listened to another one of his lectures, and it was perfect for this ministry. Perfect. I wish I could just record all of his archives and cut little snippets out for this Facebook page and the Zoom call. But he started laughing. He said, "You don't need a brain. You don't need your brain." And I said, he had my full attention, because the narrative around the medically injured community, my brain's been damaged, my brain's been damaged, my brain's been damaged. Enter David Hoffmeister. That's all I could think of was, the Wizard of Oz, and if I only had a brain. You don't get it. It's a very deep teaching, but once you've gone down the road of psych meds and benzodiazepines, you need deep teachings. We laugh, but this is serious shit.
And
go ahead, Chris.
Can I share something on rage and power and anger? So I did a year of meditation classes before I started tapering. Kenneth, sometimes you mention in other meetings, like how you can start doing this work while still on the pills. And that certainly was the case for me. I had given up trying to get off the pills. I thought I was going to be on them forever. And then during the pandemic, I started taking these meditation classes. And after about a year of that, then I was struck with, okay, time to come off the pills. But during these meditation classes, they're really great. They were called Emotional Liberation. They were taught by a teacher named Becca Williams, Becca Williams. And she was great. And it kind of felt like going back to preschool. We just talked about emotions. We would do like a practice. One of the time, we meet twice a week. So one of the meetings was a practice and the other meeting was a lecture. And we talked about anger a lot. And each of these like modules, we would do a deep dive into one or two of the heavy emotions. And anger was a big one. And she said a couple things on anger that have always stuck with me. One, she said that anger is misguided power, which I thought was really interesting, because to your point, Mary, you brought up like, there's a reason anger's there. When we've been wronged, anger is an appropriate response. But it reminds me, what is that, like Seneca quote or Aristotle? It's like, being angry is easy, but it's difficult to be angry at the right person to the right degree at the right time. I'm butchering that quote, but it's true. And so she would talk about anger as misguided power, because it really is. It's self-defense. It's there to protect us. If we've been wronged, we should get angry at the right person to the right degree at the right time. But oftentimes we don't. It gets repressed or funneled into something else. And she also talked about how anger is, especially for men, is generally a very accepted state of vulnerability. Like you can get angry, and it's generally, and not just for men, really for everyone, you can get angry and it's generally more accepted than you getting sad or getting vulnerable. And anger is kind of vulnerable, but not really. And so whenever anger comes up in me, I really try to dig down. I'm like, okay, why am I getting angry? And it's usually, for me, it's usually fear. It's like, I'm scared that this person's going to take this thing away from me, or I'm scared that I'm going to be Kenneth, that little boy again, who's defenseless, and so I'm going to get angry right now, and I'm not going to get just angry with this person in this situation. I'm going to bring up everything from the past and heap it onto the situation so that I'm really protected, And it's so not it's not really a helpful way of reacting, but learning about that process is so helpful, because I've been able to recognize what's happening in me, and kind of realize that, oh yeah, anger is like this is another thing Becca would say. Anger is like a overactive bodyguard, and all of our difficult emotions really are. They're there to protect us in some way, or there to kind of help shine the light on something. And it's our jobs to kind of like figure out what that is and sit with it. Like now when I'm angry, I'm like, okay, why am I angry? And that's okay. It's okay that I'm angry. And kind of like, we've said before, other people have said before, inviting these difficult emotions in for tea and like sitting down and kind of asking them like a guest, why are you here? What have you got for me? And let's talk it out. And before I know it, it's kind of lifted and I'm back to reality.
Beautiful.
Chris, that's the whole reason I was guided to start this. This is the work. Invite them in for tea. If somebody 20 years ago, I couldn't have done that. To be with others who are, that is the exit hatch from this. That is the work. But anyway, I wanted to jump in because I'm going to end the YouTube recording, but this is going great. I want the Zoom call to keep going, but just for the YouTube itself, this is Kenneth Price, and this is Sunday, November 13th, and this is our 51st Sunday morning Zoom call for psychiatricsobriety.com. These calls take place 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sundays. We have a midweek Zoom call that takes place 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. Please leave your comments below. And like I've said in the last about 2 months, I've stopped asking for donations, although if you want to, it would certainly be helpful. But what I am asking is participation. Participation is contribution. And by participating in the Zoom call, just by showing up, you don't even have to say anything. Just let me see that black screen with a white silhouette. Just by showing up, I'll keep going. And I firmly believe, folks, that we're on to something. I believe specifically targeting people who are coming off psych meds and benzodiazepines and emerging from these mental illness stories. I think we've got to bring metaphysics, spirituality into this. It's the whole purpose of this ministry, psychiatric sobriety. We do this in 12 steps and it worked. Very simple model. If nothing else, we just loved each other, and that's all it takes. Love. Fear's what got me sick. Love's what busted me out. So we've been here with Watson, Chris, Greg, Gemma, Mary, Jill, and Ashley. Thank you all so much for showing up. So please leave your comments below. Join us, and I'll leave my the link to my website in the description, psychiatricsobriety.com. And we'll see you on Wednesday. We're going to keep the Zoom room open, but that's the end of the recording. May the force be with you. God bless. Bye.